For the first question, we will start with Pam Eller, and it is, if you are elected to the board, what is the first item on your to-do list?
Well, my first item, I think, would be to study more closely the new master plan and strategic plan and discover the direction that the district is currently taking. Right now, there are a lot of projects going on in the district. Some of them are pretty complicated. There's been some talk about what's going on in the Ridgegate area of Lone Tree. And I think there's some confusion among people as to what South Suburban's involvement is, at least financially. There's an agreement between the developer of that project and Lone Tree, and secondarily to South Suburban. They're not building a new rec center, at least not now, but they are developing a great regional park on the lines of Cornerstone Park, which is something that's greatly needed in the district. So there are all kinds of projects going on. I don't think that I have a personal agenda for something that I specifically want the board and the district to address. I'm open, I like to learn, and I like to listen before I speak.
Thank you. And John?
Thank you. And like Pam, that's the first thing I would do. The board adopted the 2022 master plan on Wednesday of last week, and my intent is to study that, understand what the board is setting out for itself. You know, part of what you do to be better for what's coming is to be able to take a retrospective look. We've just been through the 5-year cycle, completed a 2017 plan, and the goals and objectives we set for ourselves in there, how well did we meet them without spending a lot of time on it? But in terms of how best to move forward, let's look at the plan that will be adopted and how best we can meet the needs of what we've committed to. This is a $130 million enterprise. It is a non-trivial undertaking. And that'll be my first objective, understand what we've set for ourselves and how we go about meeting what's laid out in that plan.
Thank you. And Elizabeth?
First thing I would do if I am elected to this board of directors is make an announcement to the public that there was an election. It's very important that people realize how important this election is and who is on this board, because this board is supposed to represent the in-district community. In 2022, the board of directors is required to hold a public input meeting on the 2023 budget. In 2022, at the 3 public meetings, 2 people attended. That needs to improve. So as a member of this board, I would focus on engaging with our community, letting them know this board is here to represent them, and that it is important that they interact with us and let us know what direction they want their park and recreation district to be heading. Super important to connect with our community, and I would be dedicated to making sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michael?
The first thing for me would be to really dive into the financials. I've read through the master plan and understand, it's an update from the prior plan. So I think those principles are out there, but understanding where the dollars come from, how the dollars are spent, what maintenance levels are, the level of service is very important. So I think it's for me, the biggest thing is understanding the numbers. The other thing is going to be to listen to people out there. I talk to my neighbors a lot. I'm out riding my bike or walking around with a camera trying to take photos of birds that seem to avoid me. But they're just having discussions. I got an email last night from a friend who couldn't attend today. I knew her from high school. She lives in Centennial, asking some questions about who she could contact about weeds. So I think the other thing that's important is how does the community interact with South Suburban? How can you get in touch? How can you find out information? So financials and just how to interact with South Suburban and listen to people.
Thank you. So on to the second question. Let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room, pickleball. Do you think there should be more opportunity for pickleball, less opportunity for pickleball, or does South Suburban have it just about right? So that question goes to John.
Thank you. So probably more than a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Centennial City Council meeting, and boy, there was an overflow crowd there to talk about pickleball. I made a public comment, Michael, you were there too, and then I left. But one of the things I told them before I left was, come out to Lone Tree. Rob Hanna and the team over here are putting up 4 pickleball courts at the Lone Tree. Is it 4 or 6? 6, thank you. At the Lone Tree facility. I think I almost got escorted out. Anyway, long story short, I think as a sport, it is on the ascendancy. And part of what a competent, as this agency is, district needs to do is to address the needs and the wants of its community. So we're doing that in the district. The issues that the folks that live close to it in terms of noise abatement will be addressed. We need to take that and understand there are competing priorities. But from a recreation's perspective, my belief and my understanding is there's a growing desire for the ability to engage in pickleball.
Elizabeth?
Thank you. I'm going to start by saying I love pickleball. Don't hold that against me. But it's not about what I want. It's what the in-district taxpayers want. In 2017, they very clearly said they wanted pickleball when they approved the ballot issue for a $40 million bond that said specifically to build an indoor pickleball and indoor turf facility. That's this building that we're in right now. So back in 2017, taxpayers said, yes, we want pickleball. There's also the concern about it being built in neighborhoods. It's a very valid concern. Pickleball is loud. The 6 courts that are going in at Lone Tree, I was just down there to drop off some campaign flyers. I don't know if there was public involvement in the construction and placement of those courts, but if there's not noise abatement, that neighborhood is going to lose their minds. It's right at the bottom of a hill of beautiful homes. So to answer the question, pickleball is absolutely on the rise. Centennial Lifetime Fitness has torn out indoor turf to convert it to pickleball. That's a national corporation that has a lot of research going into what are trends and upcoming opportunities for revenue. And I think South Suburban and the board should listen to their in-district taxpayers and pay attention to how revenue is generated.
Thank you. Michael?
I'm in favor of pickleball. Definitely following up on all that was said, including, I think at that meeting, the Centennial meeting, they put a moratorium on new pickleball courts. And I don't know the specific noise issue, but I've been around businesses actually in the LA basin, where it's important that you find ways to mitigate sound and deflecting sound. You think about even on the highways, how important it is to deflect that sound and look at, I would say looking at ways to make the pickleball accessible, but also make it so it's not impactful on more residents than necessary. If it's built close, find ways to mitigate that, or find another location that is uphill, not at the bottom of the hill where the sound travels up. Sound travels up, Charlie Brown.
Thank you. And Pam?
So everybody's established pickleball is a great sport, and I've tried it just a little bit, and I could see getting hooked on it. I think South Suburban has tried very hard to mitigate conflict with neighborhoods over other things as well as pickleball. I recall at one point when some fields were going in over at Cornerstone, there were neighbors that were concerned about lights at night, and the district worked with those people. They've also balanced indoor pickleball courts and outdoor. So there are lots of opportunities. The gymnasiums have lines and portable nets. There's a drop-in pickleball program at Sheridan Recreation Center that is amazing, the number of people that pile in there every day of the week to play pickleball. And they do a very nice job with pickleball drop-in over at Buck Center. So I know that the outdoor pickleball courts are an issue. I think a lot of them have been placed similar to where tennis courts are, which isn't as loud, but it generates traffic and issues like that. So I would just hope that the district would keep working with the communities and deciding where they should go. There are certain problems with land, of course, but there are ways to get around that and put restrictions on it.
Thank you. So the next question, we'll start with Elizabeth, and the question is, would you support the expansion of the South Suburban District in the future, and why or why not?
So, that's a very good question. There's a lot of arguments that go for expansion and growth, and there are arguments that go against expansion and growth. It's going to come down to what are the priorities of the in-district taxpayers, because expansion and growth is not cheap. There's initial investment. I'll use Ridgegate as an example. We annexed that. It's now part of the district, and we won't start receiving tax money from the homes in that area until they're built. So there's an initial investment involved with any growth and expansion. So it's up to the people in district to decide, do we want to be bigger? Do we need to be bigger? Should we take care of what's in our district currently, which I believe is something in-district people have repeatedly said, that they would like their taxes spent on repair, maintenance, and in-district existing facilities over new growth and expansion. That was actually a comment in the 2023 master plan that was just recently created, released, approved on Wednesday. So I think it's important to listen to our in-district taxpayers, and what I believe we're hearing is, let's take care of what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Whoa, that was fast. I really think it is about a case-by-case basis, because if you're talking about acquiring some open space and you have a partner, you can collaborate with a nonprofit that can help defer some of the dollars. It may be very vital, because I think the importance of open space has been recognized. I think that I drive by Ridgegate. We have 2 horses we board down by Franktown, so I watch that development, and the earth movers are moving farther south. The city center area is starting to be graded. So I think, and I'm sure the developer is paying some taxes at this point, hopefully. So I think it's important to understand what's coming in, and on a case-by-case basis, evaluate both the initial cost, but the long-term benefit, long-term taxpayer dollars. The developer is paying a certain amount, but I'm sure as the homes are being built, the value of the individual properties and the value of an acre is going to go up considerably. So we have to look at long-term finances as well as some of the short-term investments.
Thank you. Pam?
So it's been my experience that South Suburban District does not actively seek to expand its property or its boundaries. There are certain conditions, and Ridgegate is an example, where that developer and the city of Lone Tree agreed to annex Ridgegate into Lone Tree. As to an agreement with South Suburban and Lone Tree, then they automatically become part of South Suburban. The same thing is true of Trailmark out, I forgot the name, out west. It's completely removed boundary-wise, but it's in the city of Littleton, so it's part of South Suburban. The developer at Ridgegate is doing amazing things. They will be responsible for building all of the neighborhood parks and trails. They're doing the grading for the regional park And things are going to go pretty quickly out there as far as getting revenue coming from some of those homes. So I think that the district does what it needs to do in partnership with the towns and the cities. Grants are available anytime that there's some development that needs to be done in a new area. I just don't see the district deliberately going out and trying to expand. There's really not a reason to do that.
Thank you. And John?
What I say on my flyer is growth. For growth to happen, you have to plan for it. And all the evidence I have is this district has done a credible job of planning for growth. Where I live, City of Lone Tree, unincorporated Douglas County, I am a beneficiary of planned growth. Therefore, it is my expectation that same care and professional expertise and interaction with jurisdictions is what will be brought to bear if we need to consider doing anything we consider doing in Richgate or trail marks for that matter. I don't expect anything different.
Thank you. So the next question, which we'll start with Michael, is one of the board's stated goals is to upgrade existing facilities or create new amenities. What facility would you upgrade, or what new amenity would you create?
There are, obviously, I'm going to skip this facility. I think it is amazing, but I think it's also a reflection of what can come out of careful planning. Of course, I think back to the Colorado Ice Arena that was a seasonal ice arena when I first skated there, and I know that there are issues with that property. It's one of them that could potentially bring a new facility in, but it's going to take some long-term planning on that. I also realize there are some, what are they called, well-loved facilities that need some help, and Goodson is probably one of them that gets, in the master plan was identified. But I think there's a lot of just the open space and the trails. I think I'll have to say the bike trails, I've seen great improvements, repairs to concrete. I think the staff is been very proactive in keeping the bike trails in good condition. But getting out and seeing, I think a lot of people, especially my age, are out walking their dogs, they're walking with kids, they're taking families or grandkids to playgrounds. So I think some of those facilities can get a little bit of that attention too.
So it always surprises me when I think of someplace like the Buck Recreation Center as being new, because if you look at the timeline, it's not new. It's been around quite a while. But I think that the district does a good job of maintenance of all of their facilities. However, Goodson is older. It's it is the oldest, I think, recreation center in the district. And it presents kind of unique problems, the way it's constructed, what would happen to it. So I think one of the first things that's going to have to be looked at is Goodson Recreation Center. But there's another issue in the district as well. The Sheridan Recreation Center is not owned by South Suburban. It's leased from the school district in Sheridan. And that lease expires in the next 4 years, and it's unclear as to what might happen to that. So that's some kind of planning that's going to have to take place within the district. How do we serve the people of Sheridan and northern Littleton? But if you look at the list of accomplishments over the last 5 years from the 2020 master plan, lots of parks, trails, facilities have been improved in one way or another. It's a very long list. But Goodson, again, will have to take priority probably pretty quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
So As I understand it, and I went by Sheridan, and we're at a bit of an impasse with the school district. I think that's got to be a priority. I also know that there's been some chatter about doing some things with the trail that's the bluffs, and whether or not those are going to get paved. And I'm getting a lot of energy in that part of the district about that. So that's a question for me. And frankly, in all candor, since the Lone Tree Rec Center opened some 15, 16 years ago, I was there the day it opened, I've always wanted it's not about me, but I've always wanted a steam room. So when I need a steam room, I go to the South Suburban Goodson Center. So that's a little bit of my selfish interest, and obviously recognizing that Goodson is a little, it's well-loved, but I love the steam room over there. So if you're asking about what I see, those are the things that I think we need to consider, if they haven't already been spoken to in the master plan.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Can I get you to read that question again?
Absolutely. One of the board's goals is to upgrade existing facilities or create new amenities. What facility would you upgrade, or what new amenity would you create?
So, facility that is going to be upgraded, whether I'm on the board or not, is Goodson Rec Center. It was identified in the 2017 master plan by the South Suburban community as highly in need of repair and upkeep. It has again been listed in the 2023 master plan as a facility still ranked in high need of upgrade and maintenance. So there is a feasibility study being done right now on how to improve and upgrade Goodson Rec Center. So that's going to be a #1 priority based on input from the community for building a facility in South Suburban that needs improved and upgraded. I think it's going to be important to ask and find out what are the important things to our community. Engaging with nature has always been an important aspect of South Suburban services. We now own and operate Hudson Gardens in combination with the South Platte Park. This is a great opportunity to really, bless you, let the community know about these outdoor opportunities, and that would be an emphasis of mine, just to let people know these things are out there and available and contribute to just the quality of our offerings to our in-district community.
Thank you. So the next question, the round will start with Pam, and the question is, what steps would you take to improve South Suburban's water efficiency, energy efficiency, or other methods of sustainable practices for environmental impact?
Well, one of the things that a board of directors needs to do is rely on management and staff. And those are the people who are on the front lines, and they are the people with the knowledge and experience to provide things like managing water and electricity and gas use. I think that's been proven by the district people, the employees, who've come up with water management solutions in the parks. All of the parks are on remote sensors, so anytime there's a leak or a system needs to be shut down for some other reason, they can do it remotely. Serves two purposes: saves water, keeps a team of employees from having to drive out to various parks. And that brings up another thing they've done, is set up patterns so that a full team that works on a park can travel at the same time in the same direction all at once. So we're not having one team go here and then out here and then somebody else going here and here. They're going in a pattern so that all the parks and trails get attention on a regular basis, but it saves gas and wear and tear. There are all kinds of things. The lights in all of these buildings are energy efficient. They go on and off when people come in and out of rooms, so lots of opportunities for that.
Thank you. John?
Yes, lots of opportunity to improve our sustainability practices. I start with the premise that human activity is responsible for climate change. And with that, setting that in place, how do we as a district begin to take the steps to, not begin, continue the steps we've already undertaken to improve what we do? I know in the 2017 plan, we were clear around one of our fourth guiding principle being around leading sustainability, the issues of water consumption in and around the golf courses, you know, the towel service. So I know the district is affirmatively working to improve how we use water. I know there are a number of other discrete steps, solar panels that have been deployed to try and affect our consumption of generated electricity. So those are all part of the mix. And it all begins with having a professional staff in place that understands and is working to improve how we lead with sustainability as we move forward. So my role on the board would be to lean into that, look for them to bring the proper, you know, the proposals and the steps we can do to affect our consumption of water and energy as a district.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I'm glad I followed these two because they covered a lot of information that's absolutely correct. The staff of South Suburban Park and Rec has, of course, dealt with this issue for multiple years and has done a great job of addressing it with some of the facilities like the one we're now sitting in. I think the important part for me is establishing a baseline. If you're going to talk about water conservation, you really need to know how much water you're using. That information isn't easily available to the general public from South Suburban, so I'm not sure if they do track that and have that baseline, but I think that's an important part of talking about water conservation is knowing where you're starting and then what steps you're going to do to improve that, because you're not going to know if it's working if you can't see results. So as a board member, I would make sure there's an established baseline, know what we're using, know where we're using the most of it, which would probably be the golf courses, and look for ways to conserve and improve our existing facilities, and part of that is also going to be maintenance. You need to use part of the budget to make sure things are updated and upgraded and functioning in the proper manner, which results in better water conservation, and that's it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Michael?
Could you repeat just for me?
Of course.
Thank you. Sorry.
So what steps would you take to improve South Suburban's water efficiency, energy efficiency, and any other methods you would see for sustainable practices with environmental impact?
Thank you. I think one of the, probably, as everyone has discussed, improvements have been made, but technologically and process-wise, there are always new opportunities. And I think one of the other ones we probably haven't touched on is, can you find other water sources, gray water sources that can be used? Can you convert some of the existing turf, existing grass into xeriscape where you can limit the water there because you don't need it for fields? So looking for those kind of opportunities. As a member, national member of the organization, I'll have to wait for the certification to remind me what that is, but of the acronym. But looking at best practices across the region as well as across the country of what could be implemented. The other thing is collaborating with these other municipalities. The municipal districts have about 30,000 acres. If you look at the counties, then you're really looking at hundreds of thousands of acres. So the expertise that goes into managing that acreage and sustainability on a much greater scale needs to be applied, and just share that with the district and get that information from people who are doing it right close at home.
Thank you. We need to take one quick break so we can change out the videotape, and then we'll start back up. The next round, we'll start with John.
Yes, And you, Frida? Oh, villager, okay, thank you. Thanks for coming out.
She's from the village.
So that,
Greenwood?
All right.
Yeah, why don't you take one now while we're all looking at you?
Oh,
yeah, let's,
Hide your waters.
hide your,
oh,
whoops, I dropped my water. Can't sit still. Thanks,
okay,
All
ladies
right.
and gentlemen.
bring my water back.
This isn't even open. I reserve the right to steal it if I run out.
So we will start the next round of questions with John, and the next question is, the South Suburban Park District is 46 square miles and extends from Sheridan to Lone Tree with a diverse demographic. What steps would you take to ensure equitable facilities and recreational opportunities?
Thank you for that question. You know, I think one of the things that is unique about the district is not just the breadth of the geography it serves, but the diversity of the population, 157,000, 160,000 odd residents, you know, across that it spans, from all metrics that matter as you look at demographics. And so it presents a unique opportunity in the sense that if you were to go into any of these recreational districts, there's a town or a municipality, a singular municipality, but it also presents the opportunity it gives the district is in being adaptable to the folks it has, the diverse communities it has to serve. And I think we've done a credible job of it. My desire as a board is to continue, is to be in conversation with the folks from Sheridan through Littleton to Lone Tree, where I live, to make sure that I am the voice for the residents across the breadth of that district.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
So in the 2023 master plan, Sheridan is identified as a high-need area in equity, meaning that there's a lot of opportunity there to provide services. I think as a board member, the way you can address that is by placing a priority on your in-district community and making sure that the services that are offered in Lone Tree are also offered to Littleton, Centennial, and Sheridan. It's pretty easy to kind of forget about the northwest section because it's a little bit more established, has been around for a while. You've got a lot of new exciting things going on in the district. I think it's very important that this board remains focused on providing the same level of services for every single in-district member. Everybody that pays taxes to this organization deserves a voice that should be heard and respected.
Thank you. Michael?
When I was studying my 100 and some page 2022 master plan update, I made a note on page 56 that there was a discussion about equality versus equity. And equity is going to be putting resources where they're needed, not necessarily this much goes here because it's that many people or that many acres. So I think the equity piece has to look at places like Sheridan. I used to swim at the Sheridan pool way back when it was open. I think it hasn't been open for 15 years. But because of that lease situation, there may have to be a more creative way to either lease the land or find other opportunities to serve that community. So equity is more about where it's needed, not necessarily what's equally distributed. And some of these new facilities that may come up in the development at Ridgegate are probably going to pale in comparison to some of those that you can look at from a historical standpoint. Even the Buck Center is a great facility, but as Pam mentioned, it has a few years on it. So looking at where it's needed.
Thank you. Pam?
So one of the things when you talk about demographics in the district, you have to think about the youth all the way through to seniors. And all of those cohorts need to be served. One of the things that you notice if you start looking at the various recreation centers, for example, is that each of them is different in the way that they are built and laid out, but the programming that goes on there too. So the Sheridan Recreation Center is much more of a community, small participation area. Buck Recreation Center focuses a lot on seniors, but it has a great workout room and it has a lot of programming, very nice pool, so it can, and the basketball programs over there are great. So they appeal to a lot of demographics. The same is true of Goodson. I think that the district has done a good job of trying to serve a very wide range of people in a very large area. As far as equity, making everything available and to people, like Hudson Gardens is free admission. South Platte Park is free. That's over on the west side of the district as well. Parks and trails and all of those things. There are little areas over in Sheridan where there were small parks, now called pocket parks.
Thank you, Pam. All right, so next question, we'll first go to Elizabeth, is what steps would you take to improve communication to district residents regarding board meetings, plans, actions, and decisions?
Thank you for that question. I think, and it's a big part of why I'm running for this position, that there is room for improvement on communication with our in-district members. I would love to see all board meetings broadcast and recorded to provide access to all of our in-district community. I would love to see financial information included on the last page of the catalog that is mailed out to every single in-district member. I think it's important that they have information that says, this was our budget, this is what we spent, we are raising your taxes by 0.2 mils or whatever they do. This is vital information for our community, and for them to have voice and provide this board with input, they need to know these facts. So I would be dedicated to sharing this information and making sure anyone that was interested has it easily available to them. They don't have to ask for it. They don't have to go to the website to find it. It's sent to their home. They don't have to drive here to attend a board meeting. They can watch it online and provide their input that way. I would love to help improve the existing public involvement and community engagement of the South Suburban District.
Thank you. And Michael?
She's a very hard act to follow. But everything she's talking about is very important. So improving I think the inbound communication is something else that I would want to look at. It's like, how do you hear from residents? How do residents contact you if there's a weed problem at a baseball field? My friend from high school that emailed me last night said she has been weeding this baseball field for the last X number of years. And so it might be minor things that could be easily addressed, but I don't think she feels like she can contact the right person. So, whether it's an issue, the issues that we've had some in Willow Creek with people camping in the park. My big concern is, of course, damage to the facilities, which the restrooms were shut down for a period, tens of thousands of dollars of damage. How do we communicate that we see something? Is it reporting it to the park rangers, or does it go to the police? How do community members interact with both staff and the board?
Thank you. Pam?
So this has been a discussion that I know of since the first time I was elected to the board in 2010. How do we get information out to the residents? How do they get back to us? When I first went on the board, we didn't have much of a website in the district. And that was a priority of some of the members of the board, to push for development of a website. And I look at a lot of websites, and I think the one at South Suburban is very, very good. It's easy to get around. Excuse me, there's lots of information. There are email newsletters. I'm on at least 5 lists that I get email newsletters from different parts of the district. There are catalogs sent out to every household in the district 4 times a year. The board is accessible. Their information is there. They can get emailed. I have a couple of emails waiting for me right now. I'm going back and forth with a couple people that had questions. So I got letters, I got phone calls, I got emails. One of the important things is to work with the municipalities and the other organizations within the district, because that's how you end up reaching a lot of people. Something like working with the Highline Canal Conservancy. That's a growing concern, and they work very well with the community.
Thank you. John?
So, thank you. Everything one does, I think, you need to look for opportunities to be better, and communications falls square in that camp. I mean, I'm looking at the monthly communications that is done internally, and in my line of work, this is a credible, it's everything across the breadth of the organization. If you come to a board meeting, you will get this. Everything you have said, Elizabeth, I shouldn't speak to you directly, but I'm sorry. In terms of other communication channels and medium and streaming this information it's all in line. The question is, what are the steps we can take, and how do we go about it to get more people engaged in the district, both inbound and outbound? And so the commitment to make that really at the forefront of what the board takes on in conjunction with the leadership of the organization.
Thank you. And before we start the next round of questions, which will begin with Michael, is just a reminder that these are questions being asked by you all. So again, if you're sitting out there and you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll get you a card, and then we can get your question asked and answered. All right. So Michael, on to you. If you are elected to the board, what factors will form the basis of any decisions you make as a board member?
I think anytime you look at decisions that the board is going to undertake, it has to, the underlying for sustainability is going to look at the financial aspects. If it's a new project or if it's a new program, how do you fund it initially? How does it pay out? How do you get the dollars back that you're going to invest? Is it the best investment from that standpoint? It may be what the, pickleball courts may be the most important thing, but how do you build them in a way or put them in a spot where you get the most participation, you have the lowest maintenance or the best maintenance? So you look at those opportunities, so evaluate it on that financially, and also look at the needs for the community. Is it something that is desired throughout the community? And as far as the equity component, can you place it in a better spot so that there's more access across the district or to the residents that are really seeking that? If there's I know the demographics of the district is expected to age. I'm expecting to age. And so those things are important, that we look at where we place those resources and accessibility to them.
Thank you. Pam?
So the primary responsibilities of a member of the board for South Suburban are policy and budget. Policy is one of the first things I would look at if a situation came up before the board. What is the current policy? Has it worked in the past? Can it work if we apply that policy to this particular issue, whatever it is, or do we need to revise our policy? The other thing, of course, is budget. Can we afford it? But we always should look for partnerships. And I think it's important to note that South Suburban rarely does a major project without a whole lot of partners. Mostly the cities and towns within the district, but other organizations as well. The Highline Canal Conservancy I mentioned. Arapahoe County Open Space is a great source for grants and partnerships with the cities to build or improve facilities around the district. So the board members rely on the staff to inform them of what's going on in each individual part of the district as far as locations and accessibility and water and all of those kinds of things. But the policy and whether something is going to be good for the community is what a board member is responsible for.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. So serving on other boards, the first thing that you have to take on is understanding that there will be competing priorities and competing constituencies with respect to anything that comes to the board. From a policy matter to a fiscal matter to a operational matter from the organization. And so going into that with some temperance, asking that let's bring before us the facts and the data that set up a given position, look for community interest, because this is in the public interest. So to the extent you can draw on community interest to aid in that decision-making, you're your best place. And it is with all those sets of facts, sort of wrestling amongst it through the 5 board members, hopefully you'll arrive at a decision that moves the issue forward. That's the ethic I would bring to this board.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
So the question is, what factors will form the basis of your decisions? And for me personally, the most important factor to me is our in-district community. Going back to that statement of purpose for South Suburban, of providing services to residents within their boundaries, I would like to hang a big banner on that back wall that says, how does this benefit our in-district community? Every time this board meets. That should be the #1 question we are asking ourselves when we are making these decisions that impact our community. I think the #1 priority is making choices, whether it's financial or facilities or services or whatever they may be. You really need to address what is the benefit to the people that support this organization with their tax dollars. They're the #1 concern, and that would be the forefront of every decision that I make as a board member.
Thank you. So next question, and we'll start with Pam on this one, is how do you view the relationship with the various city and town entities inside the district, and how or where do you see room for improvement?
Well, I think as far as trying to participate with municipalities and their leadership, the district has done very well. I mean, they attend council meetings, board meetings, subcommittee meetings. They know the people in the various towns and municipalities. I think that sometimes there's a little bit of an adversarial feeling to some of the interactions, and that's not always a good thing. We need good faith partnership, and so there are a lot of opportunities to, aside from sitting at meetings and stuff, getting to know people on council or people in organizations like the chamber and that type of engaged citizenry, so that you're on a personal basis and you can talk things through. As long as people get to know each other and understand the direction that everyone is going to in and what their purpose is to serve the communities, I think that a lot of good can come from that interaction.
Thank you. John?
So I start with the fact that the district, the way it's constituted, is very complex. And to have gotten where we have since 1959 has required a set of skills at navigating municipalities, city councils, and we've done a credible job of it, and that ought to continue. I mean, I know there are folks that sit on the Centennial City Council that may be on a board that's got South Suburban interaction. So relationships are the key to how we move what this district does forward. And in my experience, what I have seen is this district does a credible job of it. The other thing that I would bring to that is it also speaks to what I've said before, the diversity of this district and getting all the municipalities to understand that and to be able to work with us is a strength. So you leverage your strengths as we move forward into the future.
Thank you, John. Elizabeth?
So, of course, it's a very complex agency, and there are a lot of established relationships already, and I think a lot of those are great, and I think some of them have actually suffered in recent years. There are some in-district agencies that feel like they're second class and not getting the attention from South Suburban that they would like, but of course, you're not going to be able to make everybody happy. I think an important part of improving relations is, again, being upfront, transparent, providing information when it's requested. If someone comes to you with a concern, I think it is vitally important that your response isn't defensive and you hear concerns and you consider them with respect and approach an equitable decision as opposed to not wanting to hear any negative feedback. There's a lot of great relationships with agencies. They should continue. The staff is doing a great job. They work hard, and I think that should be recognized as well. This is an exciting time for South Suburban. Lots of opportunities with adding Hudson Gardens, the South Platte Park. That's going to be a regional benefit to all of our in-district community.
Thank you. And Michael?
When I reviewed the 2022 update to the master plan, I was just amazed at the number of organizations that were considered, the number of people who served on committees from various organizations across counties, across municipalities, across school districts. So, and I also was amazed at the number of plans that had to be considered, the Arapahoe County Open Space Plan, the Master Bicycle Plan. So the interaction with those entities is very important. It's something I enjoy doing, is meeting people, whether they might be, we might have a relationship because our family had coal miners in our background, but we can have those discussions at events and find out who those people are, what is important to them, and then interact with that entity and hopefully get some long-term relationships that can help find information, and if there's a problem, that you address it early and find solutions early, so you're not spending dollars or spending time that could resolve an issue much sooner. So,
Thank you. And for the next question, we will start with John, and that question is, so based on your observations of the boards, not only their interactions with each other, but also the decisions and plans that they've been making over the past years, what new perspective or idea would you bring to the board?
No, this is a good one. When I was looking at this monthly plan, it dawned on me, and this actually comes to an interaction I had with Rob and when we were drawing ballots. I asked him, what's the issue you're contending with right now? And for all of us that have the privilege of leading people, it's finding people. We've got 244 FTEs, about 1,200 part-time employees who depend on this agency that we support with our taxes for their livelihood. And in this area of low employment, finding people, so that is the one perspective I would bring to the board. Taking care of the people that take care of us. And I know they do a credible job of it, but because I live in that space, I think I have a perspective that I can share with the organization.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
So I'm going to start with my observations of the board, and I'm going to say that all 5 of these members are great assets to our community and dedicated people that are basically donating their time to this agency, and it's a wonderful agency to be a part of, so I want to say thank you for that. And we are going to really miss Jim Taylor, who is term limited, so will not be able to rejoin. His knowledge and his dedication to this community has just been amazing. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about me. The new perspective that I bring to this board is community engagement, public involvement, transparency. It's very simple. It's something that there are a lot of in-district people could benefit from this. I talk to people in the community, they don't even know there is an election for South Suburban. Or I've heard, oh, I got my ballot, there was only one candidate. Well, that was South Metro, not South Suburban. There needs to be an improvement in our community engagement. They need to know what we're doing, how we're doing it, when we're doing it. Last year, in the election, 150,000 people. Last year, Susan Pye was reelected with 976 votes. That's 0.6% participation. I don't believe that is truly representative of our in-district community. Needs to be improved.
Thank you. And Michael?
Well, probably one of the best things I can bring is I don't know a lot about the history of the board from that standpoint. I will, and I have learned a lot about the history of the organization, having been associated with it since I was younger and spent time in the facilities. What I bring to it, I think, is working for a public company, there are disclosures and financial information especially, that has to be disclosed. And I spent a lot of time with stock analysts who were trying to write an analysis of the company and putting a 5-year plan out. So I had to understand the financials, share those financials. So digging into that and being able to talk about where the money's coming from, where the money's going, how it's invested. And as the district has, buildings like this come on, if you have debt, what do you do with that debt? How long is the term? What are your plans for paying it off? What happens in the downside scenarios if you have the real estate bubble burst and your real estate values go down? How does that affect your revenue? So I guess what I bring to it is a public company type disclosures and understanding the financials.
Thank you. And Pam?
So I think one of the things that I bring to this new board of directors that's going to be forming in just a couple of weeks is my experience. I have historic knowledge of the district. I think any new board member spends a lot of time finding out how we got to a certain point before we move forward. I've already experienced that. I have a relationship with the staff. I know who does what, and I have a really good working relationship with the staff in a lot of the facilities. So my experience on the board of directors also includes working on the very first master plan and strategic plan that the district developed. And from that, they went on and received CAPRA certification, which is kind of a big deal. It's a national certification, and it's very difficult to earn. So I bring all of that perspective to the board, as well as just understanding what the commitment is. It goes beyond studying the paperwork and attending the meetings to meeting with the people and spending a lot of time as a liaison to places like the Highline Canal Working Group, which is no more.
Thank you. All right, so final question, and it will first go to Elizabeth. This is actually the topic that we received the most questions on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ask all of the forms of the question that we received, and you all can each pick some, all, or not none, but some or all of how you're going to answer this question.
Hey.
All right. So would you allocate money to automatically mail ballots to all eligible voters in the district? Why or why not? Is it okay that the number of people who vote in these elections is less than 1% of eligible voters? Why does South Suburban require an application in order to receive an absentee ballot? Why didn't the district just automatically send out ballots to all eligible voters? And finally, if South Suburban can send catalogs out 4 times a year, why can't the absentee ballot application, or of course absentee ballot itself, just be included in the mailing? All right, so we'll start with Elizabeth.
First off, yes, thank you for caring. This is awesome. From running last year, I was given the statistic that it would cost $500,000 to mail ballots to every in-district member. And that's a lot of money. Sometimes voter participation is low, even if you mail those ballots out. So I do understand the concern about being fiscally responsible. So I'm not 100%, I would love to say, yes, let's mail that to every single member and get their input, but I do understand the financial aspect of it. But there's no reason South Suburban could not include an absentee ballot application in one of the catalogs, a postcard that says, if we are having an upcoming election, if you would like to vote, if you would like to receive a ballot, check yes. I mean, there are so many ways, less expensive, that we could raise voter participation. I'm also going to reference a recent, Buck Recreation Center just held their Adult Expo, which was a great event. It was from 9 to 11 on April 4th. Why wasn't there a registration table at the front door? Why wasn't there somebody from South Suburban standing there saying, we're having an election, learn more about the candidates for this board of director? So many opportunities for public engagement and outreach that we really should just be taking advantage of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael.
That was going to be one of the first questions I asked, was what the cost is, and I guess the other thing would be, I wonder what the participation rate would be. It's very sad to see even the city of Denver, when they have an open mayoral race and they have 38% participation in that. So, if you're spending $500,000, do you get a better candidate? That's the real question. But the other problem is, at what expense would a candidate need to also send out mailings? What would the cost be? And as I think Pam may be able to share, there's not a lot of compensation for sitting on the board. So it is voluntary. But I think some of the things that one of the other participants just said is, are there ways to put something in front of people so that they have an opportunity at that catalog that goes out first of the year to have that form in front of them? So if they are interested, reading through they have a desire to take a class or go to a program, but I also want my vote to be cast. Here's the form. I'll get it back into you, and please send me a ballot.
Pam?
So it's even more complicated than costing $500,000 to send a ballot to every registered voter in the district. The district covers 3 counties, parts of 3 counties. So it has to be coordinated with each of those 3 counties, and it gets to be very complicated, any kind of communication throughout those counties. So that's a problem. I do not think it's okay to have 1% participation in voting, but I'm not sure that, other than making it available, and it's not a bad idea to advertise about the permanent absentee voter list that South Suburban maintains, and it grows every time there's an election, but maybe that should be continued even when there isn't an election. Raising voter participation it's a valuable wish, but I'm not sure how it's accomplished. One thing that I've maybe been a little naive about is that I think that sometimes we don't get a lot of feedback as board members, and we don't get a lot of people bothering to vote because there might be some voter satisfaction out there, and that they like the district, they like what parts of the district they use. And I hope that's the case.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. No, the cost is a factor. The fact that and I had heard $250,000. And so do you put that in a park, or, whether it's $250,000 or $500,000, that's a key factor. Do you put it in maintaining, replacing, upgrading the park, or do you try to find a path to getting the ballot in the hands of the 160,000 residents, not all probably registered voters in the district? That gets back to the issue I've talked about, competing priorities. I don't think the issue goes away. I think it stays in the forefront, and it's something we continue to assess and evaluate. Part of the catalog, folks register for classes. We try and get them to sign up for an absentee ballot if they're not registered. Those are all things we need to continue to be about. Because yes, less than 1% participation is not acceptable.
Thank you. If everybody would stay in place, we do have to make one more switch of the videotape. And I ask that you just stay in place because we are going to then go immediately into closing statements as soon as the switch is done. Thanks. Right, and we are all set, back on. Thank you, everybody, for the questions that you submitted. They were very helpful and spared me from having to flail around up here and try to come up with questions for the candidates. All right, so we are ready to go into our round of closing statements, and we will begin with Michael.
Time.
You have 1 minute.
1 minute, let me talk very fast about that. Thank you for the opportunity, League of Women Voters, for the participation in all the audience, even some people from Ingersoll Hall that showed up today. With work from home in early 2020 and early retirement in mid-2020, I spent a lot of time riding my bike and walking the paths, beginning in Willow Creek, heading down south to Lone Tree and the Bluffs, heading north through Willow Springs open space, onto the Highline Canal, where I could wander for miles. 30 seconds. But what I see when I'm on those trails, passing the parks and the playgrounds, is residents of all ages, from infants in swings to seniors walking their dogs to old folks like me riding my bike. They've all benefited from the hard work and dedication of South Suburban staff, board members, and residents for all these years. So I just hope that I can help sustain that for next generations.
Yeah, Pam.
A board member is an ambassador. She represents the district in the community, first and foremost to the residents of that community, but also to the leaders of those communities and organizations whose collaborations are so important to the district. A board member must build those relationships. This is something that I have done in the past, have continued to do over the last 5 years since I've been off the board, and that I promise as a member of the board that I will continue to do that. I said at the beginning that I do my research, I'm always prepared, and I listen before I speak. So I hope you've learned something different about the district today that maybe you didn't know when you came. And if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to speak with any of you. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Thank you. I'd like to say all four of us have made a case. Let me tell you why I believe my case is the most compelling and why I'm asking for your vote to be on the South Suburban Board. I am passionate about the district and what it has done for me and for us. Coming out of the pandemic, it is clear beyond a doubt the value of recreation, access to parks and to open spaces, and how that contributes to one's overall health and wellness. We are a diverse district, from Sheridan in the northwest to Lone Tree in the southeast. I will be a voice that connects all parts of that district. My background, my skills in nonprofit enterprise and leadership and leading operations, I think it'll help govern the institution all of us in this room cherish to make sure that we can move it into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Elizabeth?
Okay, here goes the elevator speech. You guys ready? I am asking for your vote because I want to provide additional transparency to this agency.
Could you speak into, I'm sorry, could you speak into the mic? We'll start over. There you go.
I am running for the board of directors because I believe strongly in transparency and that the in-district community deserves a representative on this board. I want to give an example of my ability to actually influence this. Some people are like, one person can't make a difference. When we started this process, I attended a board meeting and I requested that the board provide increased advertising for this election. I said, it's important that our community knows about this. Could you please place better signage at our rec centers? Pam Eller was nice enough to send me an email that said, I just saw a great poster up at Buck Center. I can't help but think this is because of your comments at the board meeting. Thank you. One person that has this vision of inclusiveness and community engagement and public involvement can make a difference on this board. So I am asking for your vote. I hope you all participate. If you have not received your ballot, make sure you fill out the absentee application to receive your ballot in the mail. Thank you so much for coming.
All right. Thank you to the candidates and to you all for participating in today's forum. Thanks also to the South Suburban Parks and Rec for hosting us here at the Sports Complex, for publicizing the forum, and of course for attending, especially the staff who are here today. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Arapahoe and Douglas counties for sponsoring, and to the League members who volunteered to support this event. The views expressed today are not those of the League of Women Voters. After we are done today, the candidates will be available if you would like to meet them. We encourage you to take the campaign literature available at the door. Also at the door, there is information about how to vote in this election and also absentee ballot applications. As a reminder, the election will be Tuesday, May 2nd. You can vote in person on the day of the election at the Goodson Rec Center between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. If you need an absentee ballot, you must submit an application by April 25th, and you can mail or email your application. Absentee ballots must be returned by 7 p.m. on May 2nd. If you mail your absentee ballot, you should do so by April 28th. Or there are drive-up, drop-off ballot boxes, of course here, I'm sure you noticed it in the parking lot, and at the Goodson Rec Center. Please get out and vote, and thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.